I saw a post on social media yesterday from a Native American influencer. I'm not exactly sure professionally what the situation was, but it was a post about how a Native American tribe, I believe out west, had a grief ritual to basically treat PTSD before it had a name, or before we called it that, where you would, instead of like burying your feelings about something traumatic that happened to you, you would carry a stone to the river for every memory or whatever, and then drop them in while you spoke the memory aloud, which allows you to kind of let it go with the river or wash, the stones of the memory. So our, US government told them that was superstitious and made it illegal for people to practice indigenous spirituality for many years, I think until the 70s. But recently it was studied by scientists, and it reduces that ritual reduces PTSD symptoms up to, I think, 80%, sometimes higher. And that was very validating for me, because most of what I do in terms of like meditation, poetry, anything relaxing in nature content, or connecting with nature consciousness in fiction in a more fun or creative way, all of that is super important to me, but it's related to my exploration in my life of like how things work, what's conscious, what is, reality. Is it religious versus spiritual versus scientific versus whatever? How many layers can it have that aren't literal? I love the mythology symbolism that connects with all of that. But recently I realized that one of the reasons it was super important for me to shift away from writing seriously about those topics directly, besides just avoiding conflict these days with people who don't understand what I'm talking about, is that it's really not about the spirituality or about the religious content or about anything. It's about that sort of a ritual that's good for your brain, like the story I was telling you about the stones, the grief ritual. So I'm hoping that as awareness of that stuff spreads, I won't have to explain myself so much anymore, because I never really wanted to teach it as much as I wanted to just pay the experience forward so people could like relax, heal, connect with their creativity, feel at home in nature, kind of find their place in the circle of life. So hopefully they'll get better at explaining it, but hopefully people would just understand it too. I feel really good actually about the modern world and in terms of where that is going, because yes, I know there's a lot of ignorance and conflict out there, but I know from being a climate journalist that is just a normal human response, unfortunate but normal, to extreme stress, like shutting down and saying, oh, I can't deal with that. And I understand that, because I was forced to do that too through burnout, and not having a health thing figured out for a long time really took a toll on me physically, to the point I couldn't fake it anymore, that I was coping. And having to walk away from always being aware of what's going on in the news in the world was really good for my body and my stress levels. And I feel like because y'all are joining me instead of me getting out of that scenario, since the world just isn't that healthy as a context culture, I figure it would help people who are kind of coming along the same, it doesn't even matter if it's the same path, but just, living in the same world where like things are sometimes not super cute. I hope that it's not too convoluted and many steps far removed from what I'm trying to do. But now that I know why I'm doing it, it should be easier for me to like communicate it more clearly, position it more clearly, help people find it better, I hope. Because that was really my goal. My experiences early in life were very spiritual, but that's just because I was like a near-death survivor, and those experiences tend to be interpreted spiritually. And that was just the culture I was living in. So nothing against it if you have religious or spiritual interpretations for things. I actually do too. It's just I don't take all the symbolism of like, God is a white guy in a bathrobe in the sky kind of stuff super literally. And I spent an entire lifetime, just the last 3 decades, more or less, 3.5, since I was a kid, sorting that out for myself because my origin situation was so confusing and urgent. So I'm happy to pay that forward, but I am not happy to argue about it. And, you know, I am a metaphysician, but, if it doesn't make any sense to anybody, there's no point in talking about it. So it's got that weird quality right now in my work of like translating it several times through several different filters before it makes sense to anybody else. And I'm still getting the hang of that. So I don't even know if this makes any sense, but I hope somebody out there understands what I'm saying. And I hope that I will understand what I'm saying better soon so I can explain it to you a little more articulately.